Advanced PK mechanics that will transform your experience. Let's get into it. In this first example, you can see that we're not really taking our LMS warm-up too seriously, because as you'll notice, in LMS, not every opponent requires you to sweat extremely hard. Observe how far our mouse has to travel for each click we want to do. We click a prayer, we click our opponent. Then we click a double E, then we click our opponent. And then a prayer back to the opponent. We can see that these clicks are not extremely efficient. Our clicks are going across the entirety of the client. Wherever there's surface area to drag over, that's what we're doing. And when in reality, it should all just be centralized into one place, this being the bottom right. And as you'll see, that we start losing in the fight, so we kind of got to get our bearings back, and we get into kill mode essentially. And as you can see, we zoom in a little bit and we start angling our person so that he is in between our own character as well as our inventory. So instead of these long drawn out clicks back and forth, our clicks are rapidly just going from arguably probably half the distance from what it used to be. Now, if we wanted, we could even do one step further behind him to further put him even closer to our gear switches and prayers. So as you can see, he's more of near our top switches, but simply by standing in this position right here, then we're able to have our opponent right directly across from our gear switches and prayer switches. The next advanced PK mechanic we're going over is a defensive-oriented playstyle, one that I typically use against opponents that I presume to be of higher skill level than I. So let's see this in action. It's like whenever I do a switch, I'm flicking over to my prayer page. I don't know if you can see, but like every time I'm up in this this area of the inventory, I'm trying to flick over to my defensive prayers, while just to be like most efficient with my clicks. Like I'm already in the area, might as well do a prayer switch as well, like we're literally in the area. I don't know if that makes sense. It probably should. It does though. I'll explain it better in the upcoming video. Now let's slow it down and see what's happening here. So what you're going to want to do is after a gear switch or an eat, you're going to want to switch over to the prayer book and hover over what you think they're going to do. We did an eat, and now we're going to flick over to the prayer book. And then once again, we see our opponent is going to kind of run out of us right here. So we hover over our melee prayer right after we eat right there. After every action, whether it be gear switch or eat, I like to be defensive and go to the prayer book. In this case, we hovered over our mage book, and what do you know? They went to mage. You see that? Almost after every single like flick, we're going to the our prayer book right here. You see our prayers right here? Like not every single prayer is gonna be off, but for the most part, this is pretty wicked, right? A little smackaroo right there. I'll give him that. When it comes to death dotting, we tend to think that the tactic is pretty one-dimensional and straightforward, which for the most part it is. We're just doing walk unders. But if you notice, our camera was a bit different right there. So we didn't have a bird's eye view, and hence our death dot didn't work out. We didn't walk under them, we walked to the side. And once again, because our camera isn't properly, we pressed walk under and we didn't walk under. One way to combat this is by either doing a bird's eye view or taking the bolt that you just shot at them. Instead of pressing walk under, whenever possible, you're going to want to pick up the bolt that is directly beneath their feet. And this will allow you to accurately death dot without needing to be at a bird's eye view. Now, what you're also going to want to do while death dotting is to step diagonally from your opponent. So as you could see, when I go for the death dot, I'm directly perpendicular to him, and if that's the case, I could either get special attack or whipped. Now, if we step diagonally to our opponent, they just can't hit us like that. Before we get into the next tip, I would appreciate it if any of these tips have helped you out at all to let me know in the comments or leave a sub. This next advanced inventory hack that I like to use will not only increase the amount of fakies you do, but as well as keep your inventory as neat as it can be. First, I want you to observe what happens when you go for a special attack and then go back into your regular DPS. So we go for the spec and back into our range DPS, naturally. But what you see is our God Sword is one inventory slot too high. So what do you know? We gotta switch it like this. But little did you know, you don't actually have to switch it, and instead you should be doing this. Now, after going for a special attack or going into a two-handed weapon, we're going to want to hover over our previous weaponry. And from here, you can either attack them again, or you can switch into another attack style. In this case, it was Mage. And because we did that, it sort of acted as a fakie. And then we proceed with our Mage. Later on in the fight, we go for an AGS whack, and instead of going back into our previous Mage attack, we mess up our inventory by going into range gear. This puts our AGS in a weird position where it shouldn't be, and instead of dragging it, we're going to click back into the AGS and then clicking into Mage. And as you could see, it put everything to the bottom, and this is how our inventory should be. So as always, if you need to fix your inventory, go into your previous attack style and then go into the next attack style. When it comes to special attacking in a fight, I want you to keep in mind that when you or your opponent goes for a melee hit or a special attack, that you may in fact be reminding your opponent to in turn use their special attack. So oftentimes in a hybrid fight, I'll get too caught up in the hybrid switches, and it won't be until about halfway within the fight that, oh, you know, he just starts special attacking, like, oh yeah, I have a special attack too. So just keep in mind if and when you're going to go for the special attack. Here's a brief example of me being quote-unquote reminded to special attack. As you can see, we're over halfway into the fight and I haven't done one spec. Oh, he's sending literally every single one. And it's working. My turn. My turn, bitch. GG. On robes. We got him. We basically stacked that into our... Now, these next tips located in these videos will surely improve your PKing. Have a good one.